Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing good today. We've got something pretty exciting to talk about because the latest patch for the altars, update 1.3.0, has finally rolled out, and it's a big one. Now, if you've been spending time in this game, you already know how much potential it has, how unique the idea is, and how sometimes the bugs or technical quirks could get in the way of really enjoying what the developers were aiming for. This patch feels like one of those moments where they said, okay, let's clean up some of the mess, let's polish what needs polishing, and let's fix those little issues that were breaking immersion. So today, I want to go through everything that's been changed, not just in a list, but in a way that makes sense if you've been playing or are planning to jump in. By the end, you'll have a really clear picture of what's new, what's fixed, and why it actually matters. First off, let's talk about quests and story moments. In Act 2, there was this really annoying issue where if you ignored the Disease Rebellion quest, the game didn't quite know what to do with it afterward. You'd finish the MRI scan, and instead of the quest resolving itself, it just kind of lingered in the background like an awkward guest who refuses to leave. That's gone now. The quest properly cancels after the scan if you ignored it, which might sound small, but trust me, for people who got stuck in that weird limbo state, makes the story flow so much smoother. And that's what I really appreciate about this patch. It isn't just technical fixes. It's things that help the narrative feel more natural. Another story-related headache had to do with altars refusing to work when you removed a module where a radiation phobia storyline had started. Basically, the game thought the altar was still tied to that space and refused to let go, which ended up making them act like stubborn kids who just won't cooperate no matter what you do. That's sorted now. Altars won't randomly rebel just because you changed a structure, which means you can manage your base more flexibly without fearing that a single module rearrangement will break the whole chain of events. There was also this situation where an altar rebellion dialogue could get stuck entirely. Imagine you're right in the middle of a tense moment. The characters are supposed to clash, and suddenly, silence. Nothing moves forward, and you're just left staring at the screen like, is that it? That has been addressed too. The dialogue sequences should now play out the way they were meant to. Which honestly helps with immersion because the whole point of the altars is to make you feel the weight of choices, the human conflicts, and the fact that your clones have their own lives and thoughts. Without that dialogue working, it loses a lot of its punch. Let's not forget the black screen problem that popped up during chapter transitions, especially when the miner had a heavy injury. This was one of those bugs that felt extra cruel because it always seemed to hit at the worst possible moment. You're already stressed about the miner being hurt, and then boom, black screen, and you don't know if the game is loading or if it just died on you. That's fixed, which means no more panic-inducing nothingness when you're trying to move forward in the story. And speaking of the miner, there was a weird issue where if they died in the workshop, the game still considered them alive until you physically went to observe them. It's such a bizarre bug when you think about it, like Schrodinger's miner, both dead and alive until you check. That has been corrected now, so the system properly tracks their status in real time. Now, outside of story and quest-related stuff, let's get into the more general fixes and improvements. One of the recurring complaints I've seen across the community was the dreaded black screen, not just tied to injuries or transitions, but also showing up around Act 2, before and after interludes. It's one of those things that makes you hesitate to keep playing because you're not sure if the game will lock you out of progressing. Thankfully, that's been patched. It's always reassuring to know the devs are listening when players say, hey, this part of the game keeps breaking. In Act 3, they also fixed a pathfinding issue where altars weren't able to reach the sarcophagus if the travel path was too long. This is the kind of bug that can totally ruin the pacing. You know what you need to do, you know where you need to send someone, and they just stand there confused, like the GPS lost connection. Fixing this means the late game sections should feel more reliable, letting you focus on strategy instead of fighting the AI. One fix I know people are going to be happy about is with the Jan Complete achievement. Before, you had to open the lessons learned from the pause menu to get it to unlock, which felt like such an arbitrary extra step. It made you wonder if you were missing something or if your run didn't count. That's no longer an issue. The achievement now works the way it was intended, so anyone hunting for 100% completion can rest a little easier. Another fix that stood out involves the scientist character. If they left the base while heavily irradiated, they used to get locked into an infirmary bed forever, even after conditions changed. It was almost like the game was punishing you twice, once with the radiation, and then with a permanently broken character. That's fixed now, and honestly, it makes the whole medical side of things feel more manageable. Let's talk crashes, because nothing kills the mood faster than your game collapsing in the middle of a session. One particular crash happened when you went to the main menu while hovering the map cursor over a structure with a controller. Sounds oddly specific, right? But if you were unlucky enough to trigger it, you'd know how frustrating it was. That's been ironed out, so controller players can relax a little. Um, on the visual polish side, a really funny bug has been fixed. Alters rotating at the start of dialogues. It looked almost like a bad puppet show where the character spins around before they start talking. That's gone now, which helps keep the serious tone of the conversations intact. Another fix worth mentioning is the texture quality issue that popped up in 4K resolution with high or ultra texture settings. Basically, if you look toward the base, the quality would drop, and it broke the whole sense of scale and immersion. With this patch, the visuals should hold up properly, which is great news for people running higher-end setups who want the game to look as good as possible. Still in Act 3, they fixed an issue where parts of the tree weren't visible after scanning interferences. That's important because the environment itself is such a big part of the storytelling in this game, and when pieces of it just fail to appear, it undercuts the entire atmosphere. Now it should load in the way it was meant to, keeping the sense of mystery and discovery alive. And yes, for those of you who noticed it, the mustache finally appears in dialogues without delay. It sounds small, almost trivial, but little details like that matter when the whole point of the game is to sell you on these very human moments. No one wants a delayed mustache flickering into existence halfway through a heartfelt scene. The patch also covers smaller things across performance, collision fixes, tweaks to gameplay, adjustments to audio and subtitles, timing improvements. All those behind-the-scenes changes that might not sound flashy, but really add up to a smoother experience overall. And honestly, sometimes it's the unlisted small stuff that makes the biggest difference, because suddenly the game just feels more stable and natural to play. Now, let me talk to you directly as someone who really values story-driven games. The Alters is ambitious. It's about choices, it's about living with the consequences of creating different versions of yourself, and it's about managing not just a base, but a community of personalities that are all tied back to the same core identity. For a game like this to really shine, it needs a stable foundation. When bugs break the flow, the emotional punch gets lost. With this patch, it feels like the developers are doubling down on making sure that doesn't happen. If you've been holding off playing because you heard about the black screens or the broken achievements, now might actually be the best time to jump in. If you've already been playing, these fixes are going to make replaying or continuing a save much more enjoyable. And for those of us who pay attention to patch notes like this, it's a good sign that the team is actively working to improve things and listening to feedback. I know some people might look at a list of fixes and think it's not that exciting, but honestly, this is the stuff that makes or breaks a game over time. Polishing edges, removing frustrations, letting the story breathe without technical hiccups. This is how a game grows from good to great. And seeing the devs put in the effort makes me hopeful for what's coming next. So yeah, update 1.3.0 might not sound glamorous on paper, but when you actually sit down to play, it changes the whole vibe. You won't be stuck in limbo quests, you won't get hit with random black screens, your characters won't spin awkwardly before a conversation, and yes, even the mustache is finally on time. It's the kind of patch that clears the stage so the story and atmosphere can take the spotlight where they belong. And that's where I'll leave it for now.